I never imagined I'd be writing this, but here I am, pouring my heart out in a way I never thought I'd need to. My name is Jake, and I've been married to the love of my life, Sarah, for the past 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship, good communication, shared goals, and a comfortable life together. At least, that's what I believed until everything shattered around me. The signs were subtle at first. Sarah's late nights at work became more frequent, and I caught her staring at her phone more than usual. I brushed it off as stress. She had a demanding job in marketing, and I often supported her, telling her things would settle down. But there was something about the way she smiled when she read her texts that gnawed at me. It was an excitement I hadn't seen in her in a while. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just overthinking it. But then, one evening, things escalated. I came home early from a friend's gathering, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I walked into our house to an eerie silence. The lights were off, and the only illumination came from the glow of her laptop screen. It felt wrong. I checked the clock. It was only 8 p.m. Where was she? As I walked into the living room, I caught a glimpse of her phone lying on the coffee table, lit up with a message. I don't know why I did it, but my heart raced as I picked it up. The message was from a guy named Mark, some guy I'd never heard of before. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. You're everything I've ever wanted." In that moment, my world came crashing down around me. I felt sick. I dropped the phone as if it were on fire. What followed was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. I spent the next hour packing around the house, heart pounding, thoughts racing. How could she do this? I had given her everything. I finally ran the scenario over and over in my head until I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't stay here, not without confronting her. When she walked in, I was waiting for her, arms crossed and jaw clenched. Her eyes widened as she sensed something was off. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, an edge of nervousness in her voice. "Who's Mark?" I demanded, cutting straight to the point. I couldn't hold back the anger that bubbled up. Her face went pale, and for a moment she looked like a deer caught in the headlights. "Mark, what are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice rising defensively. I held up the phone, my hands shaking. You think I'm stupid? How long has this been going on?" She tried to brush it off. "It's just a friend, Jake. You're overreacting." The lies rolled off her tongue so easily, but I could see the cracks forming on her facade. "Just a friend, really?" I shot back. "That's not what it sounds like to me. You said you were working late, Sarah. What were you doing with him?" Her excuses poured out in a chaotic jumble, full of contradictions and half-truths, but I could see through them. The anger that had consumed me started to morph into a deep, aching sorrow. Every word she spoke felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into my heart. "I can explain," she pleaded, but the sincerity was gone. Each meaningless excuse only made me feel more hollow and betrayed. It felt like I was losing the woman I had loved for so long, and all of a sudden I wasn't sure who she really was. I had to gather my thoughts. I needed a plan. I didn't want to just confront her and hope for transparency. I wanted to make things right for myself. I knew I had to take a step back and evaluate what I truly wanted. I wanted revenge, but not in the petty sense. I wanted to show her that I could rise above this betrayal. The emotional roller coaster of that conversation left me unsettled. I was angry, hurt, and confused, but I also felt an ember of determination beginning to glow within me. If she thought I wouldn't find better, she was dead wrong. I didn't know how or when, but I was gonna make sure she realized her mistake. Little did I know, the journey ahead would change everything. After that fateful confrontation with Sarah, I was left feeling more lost than ever. I spent that night tossing and turning, replaying her words over and over in my mind. The ache in my chest was relentless, a stark reminder of the betrayal I felt. How could someone I loved so deeply be capable of such deceit? But as dawn broke, a different feeling began to creep in: determination. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. If she thought I wouldn't find better, I would prove her wrong. The next few days were a blur. I didn't want to stay in our home, filled with memories and the scent of her perfume, so I moved into a small apartment nearby. It was a modest place, but it felt liberating to have my own space, a sanctuary away from the betrayal that lingered in every corner of our house. I surrounded myself with supportive friends, telling them bits and pieces of my story while leaving out some of the more painful details. They encouraged me to focus on myself, to rediscover my passions and interests. I started hitting the gym again, something I had let slide during our marriage. I was fueled by a desire to transform myself, not just physically, but emotionally. I wanted to reclaim my identity. I began running every morning, pushing myself harder with each mile, letting the anger fuel my pace. I rediscovered hobbies I had neglected, like painting and playing guitar. Each stroke of the brush and strum of the strings became a form of therapy, allowing me to channel my emotions into something productive. As the weeks passed, I began to feel a sense of clarity. I remembered who I was before Sarah. I was Jake, a guy with dreams, ambitions, and the potential to create a life filled with joy. During that time, I also made a conscious effort to rebuild my social life. I reconnected with old friends, went out on outings, and even tried online dating for the first time. I figured it was time to put myself out there again. It was during one of my weekend outings that I met Lily. We crossed paths at a local coffee shop, both of us waiting for our orders. There was an instant connection, an easy chemistry that felt effortless. She had this vibrant energy about her. Her laughter was contagious, and our conversation flowed naturally. We exchanged numbers and ended up chatting for hours over coffee. Each time we met, I felt lighter, more alive. It was refreshing to be around someone who appreciated me for who I was, not who I was supposed to be for someone else. As my relationship with Lily blossomed, I couldn't help but think of Sarah. I often caught myself comparing my new experiences with her. With Lily, there was no pretense, no deceit. We talked openly about our lives, our dreams, and our pasts. She was adventurous, spontaneous, and genuinely interested in building something meaningful. I felt seen and valued in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time. But as I enjoyed my new life, I also remained resolute in my pursuit of closure with Sarah. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal and the consequences of her actions. One night, I decided it was finally time to confront her again, this time to lay everything bare. I called her, my heart pounding as I asked to meet. "Jake, is everything okay?" she asked, her tone dripping with false concern. "Just meet me, Sarah. We need to talk." We settled on a small diner, a neutral ground of sorts. As I arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I wanted to show her that I had moved on, that I was thriving, and that her words had no hold over me. When she walked in, a frown creased her face as she sat across from me. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of annoyance. "I wanted to talk about us," I began, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "Us? There is no us anymore, Jake," she replied, her tone sharp. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what I needed to say. "You're right, there's no us, but I want you to know that I've moved on. I'm not the same person you knew, and I'm not going to live in the shadow of your betrayal." Her expression shifted, and I could see a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "What are you talking about? You think you can just replace me?" "I'm not replacing you, I'm reclaiming my life. I'm happy, Sarah. I've met someone who treats me with respect and kindness, things you've forgotten how to give." Her face flushed, anger mixing with disbelief. "You really think you can just forget about everything we had?" "It's not about forgetting," I said firmly. "It's about recognizing my worth. You said I'd never find better, but I have, and I'll continue to find better with or without you in my life." I stood up, feeling empowered for the first time in a long while. I was no longer the Jake who clung to a marriage based on lies. I was the man who had learned to rise from the ashes, and Sarah's betrayal was merely a stepping stone toward my own happiness. As I walked out of that diner, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't know where the journey would lead me, but I was ready to face it head on. I had learned that betrayal could be a catalyst for growth and transformation, and I intended to embrace every moment of my newfound freedom. In the wake of my confrontation with Sarah, life took on a new rhythm. I was no longer living in the shadow of a broken marriage. Instead, I was forging ahead, eager to see where this newfound freedom would lead me. The air felt lighter, and every day seemed to present new possibilities. My relationship with Lily continued to blossom, and she became a vital part of my journey toward healing. Lily was everything I had been missing. She was spontaneous, always suggesting new adventures, whether it was hiking local trails, trying new restaurants, or even attending open mic nights where I could play my guitar. Each experience with her was a reminder of what I had lost with Sarah and what I was gaining anew. I found myself laughing more, enjoying life more, and feeling genuinely happy, something I hadn't felt in quite some time. But as I settled into this new dynamic, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to tie up loose ends with Sarah. Despite the anger and hurt, a part of me wondered if we could find closure. I started to reflect on our relationship and the good times we had shared, though they felt overshadowed by the betrayal I had faced. Closure meant confronting the past, and I owed it to myself to ensure I was truly ready to move on. One afternoon, I decided it was time for one last conversation with Sarah. I texted her suggesting we meet again. To my surprise, she agreed without hesitation. "Fine, let's talk," she replied. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anxiety as I prepared for our meeting, but I steeled myself. I knew I wanted to approach this with honesty, both for myself and for her. We met at a small park, a serene spot with the sounds of nature all around us. As I walked toward her, I could see a mix of apprehension and curiosity on her face. We exchanged awkward pleasantries before settling onto a bench. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," I started, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Of course," she replied, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. I figured we should clear the air. There it was, the moment I had been waiting for. "I wanted to talk about what happened between us, Sarah. I need you to understand how your actions affected me. I felt betrayed, and it shattered everything I believed about our relationship." She looked down, avoiding my gaze. "I know I messed up," she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't think about how it would hurt you." "You didn't think," I echoed, feeling the sting of her words. "You were so caught up in your own desires that you forgot about the commitment we made to each other." She nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know, I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't realize how much I loved you until it was too late." I felt my heart soften for a moment, but then the anger surged back. "It's not enough, Sarah. You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to be okay. Trust is built over time, and you shattered that trust." "I understand," she said quietly. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just—" Her voice trailed off, and I watched as she struggled to find the right words. I felt lost, and I made a terrible choice. Her admission stirred something within me. I had spent so long focused on my pain, but here she was, vulnerable and remorseful. It was a side I hadn't seen in a while. I wanted to rage, to scream about how she had ruined everything, but instead I took a breath and let the moment settle. "I think what hurts the most is that I thought we were a team. I thought we could navigate anything together, but you chose to go behind my back." I paused, collecting my thoughts. "I want you to know that I'm not here to hurt you. I want to move forward, and that means I need to let go of our past." "I don't want to lose you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Can't we try to work things out?" I shook my head. "I can't. You took that choice away from me when you made your decision. I'm not sure I can ever see you the same way again." The silence that followed was heavy. I could see the realization dawning on her face, the understanding that this chapter was closing. I could feel the weight of our shared history, but also the promise of what lay ahead for both of us, separate paths that diverged from this moment. "Jake, please," she pleaded, her voice strained. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to make it right." "You can't," I replied firmly. "The only thing you can do now is grow from this and learn to be better. I hope you do, for your sake." "I truly wish you well." As I stood up to Eve, I felt a sense of finality settle over me. I had confronted her, expressed my feelings, and made it clear that I was moving on. It felt good to finally let go, to take that step toward closure. I didn't know where the future would lead me, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next, because I had learned the hard way that life was too precious to waste on betrayal. Walking away from that park, I felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. It was a significant step in my journey. I had confronted my past and emerged stronger, with a clearer vision for the future. Little did I know, my path was only going to get more exciting from here. After my conversation with Sarah, I left feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. It was done, a closure of sorts, but I still had a long way to go. I was determined to focus on my new life with Lily, who had become a beacon of joy amid the tumult. As I transitioned into this new phase, I found myself feeling more alive than I had in years. Lily and I began spending more time together and our connection deepened. We explored new places and enjoyed each other's company without the weight of past relationships hanging over us. Every moment spent with her felt refreshing, like a breath of fresh air. She was not just a distraction. She inspired me to embrace life again, to pursue my passions, and to think about what I truly wanted for myself. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the coast. The idea was spontaneous, but that's what I loved about Lily. She had a sense of adventure that was contagious. We packed our bags and hit the road, the sun shining brightly overhead as we drove toward the ocean. The chatter between us was effortless, filled with laughter and a sense of ease that felt foreign yet refreshing. Upon reaching the beach, I was struck by the vastness of the ocean, the waves crashing against the shore. We spent the day soaking in the sun, building sandcastles and sharing stories. I watched as Lily collected seashells, her laughter ringing like music in the air. It struck me how far I had come since the dark days of my marriage. This was my life now, full of possibility and joy. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, we settled on a blanket, sipping cold drinks and enjoying the view. It was one of those perfect moments that made me realize how much I had missed out on during my time with Sarah. I turned to Lily, feeling the warmth of her presence beside me. "Thank you for being here," I said sincerely. "I needed this." She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I'm glad you're allowing yourself to have fun again. You deserve it." That's when I felt it, the urge to share my past with her, to explain the journey I had taken to get to this moment. "You know, it hasn't always been easy for me," I began, gauging her reaction. "I just came out of a really tough marriage." She nodded, her expression shifting to one of understanding. "I figured you had a story. You seem so strong, but I know there's more beneath the surface." I took a deep breath and recounted my experiences with Sarah, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and my path to reclaiming my life. I could see empathy in her eyes as I spoke, and it felt good to share my truth without fear of judgment. It was liberating to be open about my past, to let her in on what had shaped me. "I just want to be better," I concluded, my voice steady. "I want to build something real this time, something full of honesty and respect." Lily reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You're already on that path, Jake. Just keep being open and true to yourself. That's what matters." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the beach, I realized that life was about more than just moving on. It was about embracing new beginnings. I was ready to take the leap into this new chapter with Lily, fully aware of the challenges and joys that lay ahead. But just as I was beginning to feel settled, the past had one last surprise in store for me. A few days after our trip, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated but ultimately decided to answer. It was Sarah. My stomach dropped as I heard her voice. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her tone serious. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. "What do you want, Sarah?" "I need to explain something about Mark. I didn't tell you the whole truth," she said, her voice shaky. I was taken aback. "What do you mean? I thought we were done talking about the past." "I know, but I owe it to you to come clean. Can we meet?" She pressed, and for a moment the old familiar feelings of anger and betrayal bubbled up inside me. I thought about Lily, about how far I had come, and how I didn't want to be dragged back into the chaos of Sarah's life. But the question nagged at me. What could she possibly have to say that I hadn't already heard? "I'll think about it," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. I didn't want to revisit the past, but part of me felt a morbid curiosity about what she had to say. Over the next few days, I found it difficult to focus. I shared the call with Lily, and she listened carefully, concerned. "You don't have to meet her if you don't want to, Jake. You're moving forward, and she's part of a chapter you've closed." "I know," I said, torn. "But what if she's trying to take responsibility? What if she wants to apologize properly? Maybe it's worth hearing her out." Lily nodded but added, "Just remember that you're not obligated to forgive her. Your happiness matters most." I took her words to heart and decided to meet Sarah one last time. This was my opportunity to see if there was any sincerity behind her actions, or if it was just another attempt to manipulate me. I set a date to meet her at a cafe, steeling myself for whatever was about to unfold. My heart raced at the thought of this confrontation, but I knew I had to face it not for her, but for me. I was ready to put the final pieces into place and close this chapter once and for all. The day of my meeting with Sarah approached, and I was a bundle of nerves. I spent the morning packing in my apartment, contemplating the conversation that loomed ahead. I had made significant strides in reclaiming my life, and I did want to let her drag me back into the emotional turmoil. I reminded myself that this was about closure, not about reopening old wounds. When I arrived at the cafe, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. The place was bustling with people, but it felt like a world away from the chaos in my mind. I found a table in a corner, taking a moment to breathe and gather my thoughts. As I waited, I replayed my intentions in my head. I was here to listen, but I wouldn't tolerate any manipulation. This was my chance to finally put this chapter to rest. A few minutes later, Sarah walked in, looking decidedly more put together than I remembered. Her eyes darted around the cafe before settling on me. She approached cautiously, her expression somber. "Jake," she said softly as she sat down, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Let's just get this over with." She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "I wanted to talk about what I did, about Mark. I realized I never fully explained the situation, and I owe you that much." I leaned back in my chair, intrigued but cautious. "Go on," I prompted, trying to maintain a composed demeanor. "Mark was someone I met at work. I thought it was just harmless flirting at first," she said, her voice shaky. "But I let it go too far. I thought it was an escape from the pressure I felt in our marriage. I was lost, Jake." Her words were familiar, and I felt a familiar anger bubbling beneath the surface. "And that's supposed to make it okay. You didn't just flirt, you crossed a line. You cheated on me." "I know," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I'm sorry for how I handled things. I didn't think about how it would hurt you or destroy what we had." A part of me wanted to scream. I had spent so long grappling with my feelings of betrayal, and here she was, attempting to rewrite the narrative. "You think saying sorry erases what you did? You shattered my trust, Sarah. You broke my heart." "I know," she whispered, her voice cracking. "But there's more. I ended things with Mark. I realized I was making a huge mistake and that I wanted to try to fix things with us. I thought if I could show you how much I've changed, maybe we could start over." The audacity of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You really think I would consider going back after everything, just because you say you want to fix things?" "I'm not like that anymore," she insisted, her desperation evident. "I've done a lot of soul-searching and I've realized how wrong I was. I'm not asking for everything to go back to normal, but I hope you can at least see that I'm trying to change." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "This isn't about you anymore, it's about me. I've spent months rebuilding my life. I've found happiness in ways I never thought possible, and I've moved on. You're not part of that anymore." The hurt on her face was palpable, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused me. "You had your chance, Sarah. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." She looked down, cleansing her tears with a shaky breath. "I understand. I just needed to tell you how I felt. I messed up, and I'm sorry for everything." "Your apologies don't change the reality of what happened," I said firmly. "I hope you find a way to move forward and become a better person, but that doesn't include me." There was a long silence between us, the weight of our shared history hanging in the air. I felt a sense of finality rising within me. This was it, the end of our chapter together. I had confronted her and I had made my boundaries clear. As she collected herself, I stood up, signaling that our conversation was over. "I wish you well, Sarah. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not with me." As I walked out of that cafe, I felt a sense of triumph mingled with relief. I had faced my past and I had emerged stronger. I was finally free. With every step I took away from that meeting, I felt lighter. It was time to focus on my future with Lily, to embrace the happiness and joy that had been absent for so long. I wanted to cherish the moments we had shared and build a solid foundation for what lay ahead. As I got back to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Lily. "Hey, can't wait to see you later. I have a surprise for you." A smile crept onto my face as I read her message. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, filled with love, adventure, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In a world where betrayal once loomed large, I had chosen to rise above and reclaim my happiness. After my meeting with Sarah, I felt a strange sense of liberation wash over me. I had faced my past one last time and emerged stronger, more resilient than ever. Walking back to my apartment, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. I had made my choices, set my boundaries, and was ready to embrace a future that was finally mine. Lily's text had sparked a sense of excitement within me. I was eager to see what surprise she had in store. When I arrived at our favorite cafe, I spotted her sitting at a table, a beaming smile on her face. She looked radiant, and the sight of her instantly lifted my spirits. "Hey there, handsome," she greeted, standing up to wrap her arms around me. "I've got something special planned for us today." I returned her embrace, feeling the warmth of her affection seep into me. "What's the surprise?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. She leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "We're going on an adventure. I've booked us a spot at a local art workshop. You mentioned wanting to get back into painting, remember?" My heart swelled with gratitude. "You really thought of everything, huh? I just want you to embrace the things you love," she replied softly. "You deserve to have fun and rediscover those passions." As we made our way to the workshop, I couldn't shake the feeling of joy bubbling within me. It was refreshing to be with someone who genuinely cared about my happiness, someone who believed in me and encouraged me to pursue the things that brought me joy. It reminded me of how far I had come since the dark days of my marriage to Sarah. The workshop was a fantastic experience. We spent hours painting, laughing, and letting our creativity flow. I found myself lost in the colors and textures, letting the brush guide me as I rediscovered that passion I had shelved for too long. Lily encouraged me every step of the way, offering compliments and advice, and it felt great to create something new together. Later, as we were cleaning up, I looked over at her, a feeling of contentment washing over me. "Thank you for today, Lily. I really needed this." She smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. "I'm glad. You're an incredible artist, and I can't wait to see more of your work." As we walked back to my apartment afterward, we shared stories about our dreams and aspirations, weaving our hopes together for the future. The more we talked, the more I realized how much I had grown since my relationship with Sarah. I was no longer that insecure man who allowed himself to be manipulated. I was Jake, an individual ready to embrace life and love on my terms. That evening, as we sat on the couch sipping wine, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me. I had learned some painful lessons, but those experiences had shaped me into a better person. I was ready to love again, and I was grateful to have found someone like Lily who genuinely cared for me. "Jake," she said softly, her expression turning serious, "I want you to know that I'm here for you. I see how hard you've worked to move on from your past, and I'm proud of you." "Thank you," I replied, my heart swelling. "It hasn't been easy, but I feel like I'm finally in a good place. I want to build something real with you." Her smile widened. "I want that too. Let's take it one day at a time, okay? No pressure, just enjoying each other's company and seeing where it leads." I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. I was ready to embrace this new beginning, free from the chains of my past. I no longer had to worry about betrayal or broken promises. I was ready to pursue love with open arms, fully aware of the lessons I had learned. As we snuggled on the couch, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. I had faced heartache, betrayal, and challenges that had tested my strength, but I had emerged from it all with newfound wisdom and a deeper appreciation for love. Life, I realized, was about resilience, about rising from the ashes of our pasts and building something beautiful in its place. I chose to embrace this new chapter, to pursue love and happiness with an open heart. In Lily, I had found someone who inspired me to be better, and for that I would always be grateful. As the night wore on, I knew that I was ready for whatever lay ahead. I had faced my demons, confronted my past, and emerged stronger. It was time to chase my dreams, to love fiercely, and to savor every moment of this beautiful, unpredictable journey called life.